and welcome to This Week in the PNFL. I'm your host, Mark Hill, and along for the ride is Mitch Grawl and Dean Chambers. How you doing, fellas?
Very good.
Fantastic.
All right. So we're gonna do a little something different this time. We're gonna do our normal show routine as we normally do, and then we're gonna have our special guest, the co-commish, Rich Colosino, is going to chime in our middle segment. So he will not be in the first segment or in the third segment. I know you guys are going to be disappointed about that, but hey, it is what it is. So we have finished.
Nobody tunes in to listen to Rich anyway.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I mean, they're all here. They're all here for Dean.
There you go. For Dean and for you. He's kind of, Rich is kind of like the Roger Goodell. They want to boo him all the time and that type of stuff.
More like Rodney Dangerfield is what he is.
Yeah, no respect. But hey, you know what? No. Hey, Rich,
you see what people put on the forum about him.
Oh, yeah. But you're all right in my book, Commish. Hey, you allow me to, that little private information where I could Venmo the referees, and I definitely had to do that in this week's game. I had to send a couple of Venmos out to him. So,
that was obvious. He must be running your Sims 4 or 5 times to make you 7-1. I mean, goodness gracious!
Oh, come on now. Hey, I told you I was using the Mitch Grawl PNFL book, so I've been,
Well, how do you think I'm 6-2?
Well, hey, I don't know. Maybe you need to read that book. Go back and read that book again.
I don't read my own book, The Art of the Sim.
That's right, The Art of the Sim. Read that book. It's used to be a bestseller. I don't know, So, week 8 is in the books. We had some pretty interesting games out there. We had one that went into overtime. I wouldn't say we had any blowouts. We did have, a couple of games that was a little bit out of control. Not really that much. I think there was like a 34-14 game that I'm looking at right now. But everything else was pretty close, and we did have one shutout. So, player of the week was Justin Fields from Chicago. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into that segment as we get there. There you go. So, as we jump into the Week 8 recap, we're going to pass this one on over to Mitch.
All right, PNFL coaches, it's Week 8, and what a week it was all over the league. Midway through the season, and tell you what, so many teams have their hopes still set on making the playoffs. Let's see how things went here at the midway point of the year. So we're going to start off with Denver hosting Indianapolis, and what was touted to be a big game here for both teams. I know Denver starting the year off struggling. People expected them to have a much better start to the year, but Indianapolis, after the big strong start, really looking like they're starting to cool off. Who is going to win that game? Well, the Broncos were 2.5-point favorites, and that ended up, being more than enough as they won that game 21-7. Tua Tagovailoa just went crazy against the Indianapolis defense, winning player of the game, throwing 3 touchdowns, a massive 151 yards, and really stretched the field with a pass, long pass of 14 yards in this game. So just lit up that Colt defense, and that was enough to get them that 14-point win. Mark, what did you see in this game this week?
I saw that, like you said, it was a game that we thought was going to be a much, maybe like a higher scoring game, which it wasn't. But from what I saw from Tua, he really didn't put that much up. I mean, in yardage wise, but the yards he put up did count. He got 3 tubs out of it. From all the numbers that Indy put up with Kenny Pickett, by looking, I thought they would have won the game. I don't know. I thought Indy was going to be on a roll to take this, or at least move forward within the season, and they didn't. So tough setback for Indy. They're at 5-3. They could have taken another step, but they're still tied in the division. So there's still some opportunity left. They're going to turn into a bloodbath out there with the top 3 teams out there. What did you think about it, Dean?
Well, I have a disclosure to make before I comment on this game. Do you remember, Mark, a couple weeks ago, you won 2 points for getting all 9 games wrong in the picks submitted to Rich?
Yeah.
So I thought as often as I go where I get 5 or 6 or 7 of the games wrong, I thought if I pick all the games wrong, I'll win 2 points instead of 1. And as wrong as I am in making these picks, I should have a good shot at doing it. So when I submitted those, and that's why I have the Broncos winning here, even though I really thought Indianapolis was going to win, I submitted all 9 of them wrong. And guess what happened? I was right on.
You got the 6 point, or you got 6 of them right.
I got 6 of them right by picking all of them wrong. So that's kind of interesting, I guess.
You should be a stockbroker. I mean, that's pretty much what happens with stockbrokers, I think. So.
Yeah.
You make money by picking everything wrong? I don't know.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, as for this game, yeah, it's a good question. What happened with Indianapolis? They just didn't excuse me. They just didn't play all that well, and they scored 1 touchdown, and that's all Denver's defense allowed, and they lost by 2 touchdowns, and this is definitely a bounce-back win for Denver, which I didn't really expect. As I said on the show last week, Indianapolis was going to win, and that didn't happen. So maybe the business of picking the games wrong can lead you to being right. Something to think about.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way to look at it, young.
Almost Dr. Evil-esque.
Yes, pretty much Dr. Evil.
Well, let's move to Buffalo, everyone, because the Bills hosted the hard luck New England Patriots, led by everyone's second favorite coach, Big Mox. And could New England could they turn things around and get the season back on track with a big win in Buffalo? They were coming into this game a 6.5 point underdog to the Bills, and once again the New England offense just marched up and down the field, outgaining Buffalo by about 150 yards. Nearly 60% third down efficiency, 300 yards passing, over 9 yards per pass, and just looked like, man, they moved on. But they lost by a point again. Buffalo, the right quarterback, Caleb Williams, he did throw for 2 touchdowns and a nice efficient 77% passing, but man alive, everybody! I don't know what to say about New England. I mean, it's like they do everything but score enough points. So I don't know, Dean. What did you take away from this game?
Yeah, I think it would be simplistic and reductionist to look at this and say, "Oh, this is another game where New England, scored more yards and whatever, and still managed to lose." They did all of those things you said, but there's one number here that's really interesting, and I applaud Mox for going for third down 3 times. But unfortunately, fourth down, yeah. They went for 4th down 3 times, but they didn't make any of them. And I think if they made one of those, that probably would have kept another drive alive, and maybe New England would have scored an additional, at least a field goal to win this game. So, this game, I think, shows that he's doing pretty much enough to win and just needs to do a little bit more, whatever that more is. But at least this game, the previous game, Marsh was very disappointed in what he saw as his offense being inept and so on. That wasn't so much true here. I mean, he scored almost enough to win, and the offense was a bit more effective here. So I think just continue working at it, making improvement. You know, at 1-7, a playoff spot this season is probably not likely, but you know, in the rest of that, the second half of the season, he can build on his progress and continue working on the profile and game plans and everything that he's doing, and maybe look forward to being much more competitive next season.
Mark, what was your take on this game?
You know, it's kind of like you. I really feel bad for Mox because he has just, you know, I'm looking at how many games that he should have won. You know, week 2 against Seattle, he lost in overtime. Week 3 by 3 points to Jacksonville. Week 4 overtime to the Jets. Week 6 by a touchdown to Indy. And this week, 1 point to Buffalo. I mean, that has to be devastating to him. As far as the game itself, when you look at the stats, I mean, he put up some good numbers on, you know, passing and running, but it just wasn't quite enough. And I think I mentioned it before that it looks like he has the plays and everything, but the only thing I can look at is his profile settings. What's he doing in the profiles to making sure that he doesn't make those mistakes? And I think we've talked about this several times during the shows this season, and even with Rich, even mentioned on Discord, and even you know, when they're doing we're doing Friday Night Lights, it has to be in the profile. That is just that one thing he needs to tweak which could make the difference from him being where he's at right now, you know, at 1-7 and 7-1. It's just, I feel bad for him. I really do. And that's not BSing. It's just, it has to be in the profile, Mox. You got to tweak that profile. Whatever it is, you got to tweak it. That's all I got.
All right. Well, good insights, Mark. And
I should know because I used to do that.
Look better in those 2-minute situations this week on the profile from where he had been, but maybe there's still some adjustments to be made.
Yep.
Speaking of adjustments to be made, let's go to Jacksonville, where the Jaguars were 10.5-point underdogs to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh can't quite figure out where they want to go with quarterback. This week, Trevor Lawrence was under center after Will Levis has been starting a few games this year, coming off that tough defeat against Houston recently. And Jacksonville said, you know what, Rich Sportsbook, screw you. 10.5-point dogs. There's no way we're going to lose by 10.5. Jacksonville pulls out the upset and gets a 10-point loss versus that 10.5, completely blowing up the sports book, blowing up the brackets this week. The big man Thor, quarterback for Jacksonville, throwing for 285, 2 touches. Lawrence for Pittsburgh, 244 for 2 touches. Those turnovers for Jacksonville, those interceptions, definitely costly. But Mark, what'd you take away from this game?
Well, I took a look at this one here, lots of, the passing going on both sides. The interceptions, it was like, okay, you get an interception. What was it? Pittsburgh, they had 2 interceptions over Jacksonville. Jacksonville still has their woes going on. Thor was, he was lighting it up in the air, and he had 2 tubs out of it, but he had 2 interceptions out of it. So, we need to get Jacksonville's coach on the show, just to find out what's going on over there, because I don't want to go into the numbers and the stats. I'm sitting here looking at them, but yeah, another tough outing for them and another loss for them. Can't say much more than that.
Dean, what'd you learn this week from watching this game?
Yeah, those 2 interceptions that Thorson threw, that probably cost Jacksonville a shot at actually winning this game. Not a moral victory, not beating the spread, an actual win. Pittsburgh is a solid team, but they're not unbeatable. I'm not sure that anyone is unbeatable this season. I mean, we've seen probably a lot more closer scores, I think, this season than we've seen in the past. And, Jacksonville is falling short in even some of these closer games. And tough loss for them, and been kind of a tough season. So,
all right, it has been tough for Jacksonville, but you know who also has had a tough season? Then y'all, the Green Bay Packers, and that's where we're going next. We're traveling over to Green Bay, where the Packers hosted the Eagles. You know, with that tandem coaching general manager situation they've got there. Both teams have had a little bit of a disappointing start to the season based on their own expectations. I don't know if it's been different from what many of us thought was going to happen. But, Green Bay this week, Malik Willis, player of the game, looking like a 1984 Dan Marino, throwing for 385 yards on a 70% completion percentage, over 10, almost 11 yards a pass, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks. I mean, just absolutely torched that Eagle defense, and it still isn't enough to win. Philadelphia 28, Green Bay 27, because somehow that Green Bay defense made Spencer frickin' Rattler look like the 84 Joe Montana. Threw for 325 and a touchdown, and just absolutely torched that Green Bay defense. Dean, what do you make of this game?
Well, a lot of it was the battle of these two quarterbacks. You're looking at a 7th-round pick that I had incorrectly referred to as a rookie. But Malik Willis was a top 5 pick when he was drafted, and this week he played like one with the 70% completions. And he was player of the game because he threw 3 touchdown passes, even though. So, yeah, it's a tough loss for Green Bay. They scored 27, and the defense gave up 28. The defense, if the defense had played a little bit better in this game, Green Bay would have prevailed. But as you have noted, the team that gives up more points loses 8,034 times out of 8,034 games.
It's never failed. It's never failed, Dean. Teams that have given up more points than the other are winless. It's crazy how that's worked out. Crazy. Mm-hmm. Mark, what'd you learn?
Another rough outing. Another tough loss for Shuggy. I mean, I actually thought Shuggy was going to pull this one out. I mean, they were slinging it back and forth through the air. They were, numbers are fairly even on the ground. But at the end, Philly just nipped it and took it from them. I mean, it would have been a very impressive win for them against Philly. But, just another tough loss. And I know those feelings like, man, you have this team on the ropes and you can take it. But at the end of the day, you gave it up. If I'm not mistaken, he gave it up in the fourth quarter again. He's been doing a lot of that this season. So,
yeah, and I was looking here. It didn't help that Dicker, the kicker, missed 2 field goals.
Yeah, that too.
I'm sure
that too.
I'm sure the special teams coach is hearing about that this week.
Oh yeah, 2 for 4. Yeah, that's even worse if you look at it. All he would have had to do was just make one of those 2, and that would have been it. Ugh. So,
all right,
another tough loss.
We're going to move on to our next game. So, everyone, if you would please rise.
Here we go.
And remove your caps. Our next. Yes, the Houston Oilers hosting the rival Washington Redskins. And what a battle this game was. This was an instant classic. I mean, if you really love old school football, this was the game for you. I mean, I think the mid teams, the trainers, they're probably still getting paid overtime from the work they had to do during this game just to keep enough players on the field for this hard-hitting, old school, old NFC East matchup between these two teams and coaches. And what a glorious win it was for everyone, America's favorite team, the Houston Oilers, 17-15 over Washington. Baker, the touchdown maker, Mayfield, throwing for 72%, 170 for a touch, winning player of the game. But it was just that defense that just looked just amazing against that Washington team. Mark, what did you learn from this game?
Well, what I learned from this one was it was definitely a darn good win for Houston. When you say it was a throwback, I mean, it was definitely one of those good throwback games where, a lot of, the rushing from Houston was, just powering it through as, running by committee. Very, I'd say, somewhat of a defensive minded game there, low scoring points, but very entertaining. I watched it offline a second time and try to see what I can learn from it. But definitely from a defensive standpoint, both teams did their thing, but someone had to win, and Houston ended up nipping it at the end and taking the victory. So good win.
Dean, you have a lot of experience against these two coaches. What were your learnings in this game?
Well, I have a question for you before I comment on that. I mean, we know that Washington doesn't play very well in bad weather. Is there any truth to the rumor that you installed some sprinklers and created rain-like conditions for this game when Washington came to town?
There is an investigation, Dean, on what exactly happened, but for some reason, just before kickoff, the fire extinguisher sprinklers on the roof of the Astrodome did kick on for about 15 minutes. Not sure what happened there. We're still looking into it. Apparently, this so happened the security cameras were not working at that time. We'll get back to you, Dean, as soon as we learn anything. The Houston Oilers organization is leading the charge on that investigation, so I'm sure we will find what happened in short order.
Because there's been an idea floated in Atlanta for next year's Washington at Atlanta game that we might lower the temperature to 24 degrees, roll in some snowmaking machines, and cover the field with snow to welcome the Redskins to play in our stadium. So that might be a way we can welcome Washington with some the kind of weather that they would really love. But This game was definitely a defensive struggle. And Washington, kind of uncharacteristic of them, was 3 for 11 on third down conversions. Jerry's team usually does better than that. But they made up for some of that by completing 2 out of 2 fourth down conversions. But in the end, I think the defense that Houston played was very tough and held them to 15 points. And I just want to check real quick. That 15 points, okay. They scored 2 touchdowns, but they must have gone for a 2-point conversion. But Houston,
they did.
7.
Their first touchdown, they went for 2. Yeah, because it was an 8-0 lead. Yeah,
it was 8-0.
Yeah,
but so they're a little more aggressive on some of those things. The fourth down conversions going for 2 points, which Washington has done the last few weeks. I believe they even did that in the last game that I played against them. So. But, they fell short in a defensive battle, very low scoring. And, Washington is 5-3. And as we will discuss, that's not quite what we usually expect from Washington at the halfway point of the season.
All right. Well, keeping things in the NFC, or speaking of the NFC East, a big NFC East rivalry. New York Giants traveling to that dome that Dean is speaking about to play the Falcons. Giants were a 4.5 point, favorite in this game against the Falcons, who started off struggling this season. But the Falcons said, we don't care what our record is when we play the Giants. We're going to beat them anyway. Atlanta 23 to 20 over the Giants in overtime. Zonovan Knight, winner of Player of the Game. And this one actually looks legit for a running back. 130 yards, a touchdown, 4.8 yards a carry. So the running game definitely came to life for Atlanta in this one. But a big win for Atlanta, keeping them in the playoff hunt now at 3-5. So big win for Dean. We'll get to Dean here in a second. But Mark, what did you take away from this game?
Definitely a darn good win for Atlanta. I think I might have picked the Giants on that. I'm not too sure, but definitely a good win for his team. Like you said, Knight definitely was legit with the yards that he was putting up. Burrow was doing his thing. He didn't try to do too much. He did enough to, 167 yards. He did just enough to win the game. On the defensive side, Atlanta was doing their job with Shedeur Sanders, 2 picks on Shedeur. So, that rookie that everybody was been talking about, thought he was going to be able to do something and pull it, and keep that train rolling. Not this week. It was not meant to be. So, good game plan by Dean on both sides of the ball, and got that victory. And even though it took the extra frame to do it, he got it. So, hey, it could be start of him turning things around.
Dean, coach of the mighty Falcons in this big victory. What'd your team? What'd you tell the team after the game this week?
Well, what I told them is that they finally found some offense, at least in running the ball for 284 yards. And that was the adjustment made in the profile this week, is to basically what I did is maxed out the running in some of the down situations, first downs, and then selective situations in second and third down to run the ball more. And the other combination is that the plays were effective enough to get an average of 5.5 yards per rushing attempt for the entire team running the ball, which when you could run that effectively and you do it that long, and it led to a time of possession of 41 minutes, but it still went to overtime. It was still a close game, and our defense still allowed a few scores, which, ideally you'd like to be a little more effective at stopping the other team from scoring that way. But as close as it was, the one thing I've noticed that I've looked at, that my team is 5-3 right now. Those 3 games are close, 2 of them by a point and 1 of them by 3 points. If my team had scored 12 points less, my team would be 0-8. On the flip side of that, there were 3 losses that were very close. 2 of them, I think, one of them by a point, 1 of them by a touch, 6 points, and the other by a field goal. And had my team scored 16 points more in those 3 games, my team would be 6-2. So a lot of close games all around. There's only 2 games really that have been not so close. The 28-15 loss to Philadelphia, which is not a blowout. The 32-13 loss to Washington week 2 was the worst game. So my team has been in a lot of close games, and as we will talk about in the second segment, Minnesota's 7-1, and Barney has admitted that his team has played a lot of close games, but they've been on the winning side of most of them, other than that 1 loss. So I think in the second half of the season, we're going to look at trying to win more of those close games.
All right, yeah, winning those close games is always much better than losing the close games. I know I've always felt that way. So good luck with that in the second half of the season. But speaking of Minnesota, all right, we got the Vikings on the road. 1.5-point dogs to the Jets. I'm sure everyone was wearing their purple and gold this week, but unfortunately, the green and white walked away with the victory, 25-21. Laviska Shenault, huge game this week, winning player of the week for New York. You know, if you look at the stats, I mean, this huge game, he ran one time for 0 yards. Okay. Oh well, it must be his receiving this week. He got 2 balls for 32 yards. Okay. Here's why he won player of the game. A 101-yard kickoff return all the way for a touchdown, proving to be the difference in this game. 25-21, still a tough-fought game between both these teams. Statistically, very even. When you look at the stats, so that special team coverage blunder by the Vikings cost them, and as the Dean's already said, a lot of close games for the Vikings, a lot of close games for the Jets this year too. But this time it was the Jets squeaking out that victory. Dean, what do you think about this one?
Well, what I'm seeing on both sides, Mac Jones completed 43% of his passes and threw an interception. Not a good day for him. Drew Lock completed just 50% of his passes, though he did throw 2 touchdown passes. And likewise, so the pass defense was pretty good on both sides. Likewise, Minnesota was only 31% on third down conversions. The Jets were only 36% on third down conversions. Both teams were a little better in the running game. Minnesota ran for 142. The Jets ran for 138. So, and time of possession was 1 second from being just even 30 minutes each. So both teams ran the ball fairly well, didn't pass the ball very well, and I would call this a low-scoring game, maybe a moderately scoring game, and that 101-yard return for a touchdown was the difference. And I was expecting Minnesota to win this game, but the Jets managed to not exactly the old school Jets do what the Jets do kind of situation where they dominate someone 42-13, but they did win at home.
Mark, what did you take away from watching this just disappointing Viking loss?
Well, I'm not, I'd like to say it was disappointing for me as well, but I needed the Jets to do what the Jets usually do, so that was a good thing for me. The game-wise, though, definitely that run back was for a touchdown, the kickoff for a touchdown. That was definitely a backbreaker there from otherwise pretty evenly matched game going back and forth on the offense for passing and from the rushing standpoint. It's hard for me to kind of figure out the Jets. I mean, I know that they're pretty much on the autopilot, but it's kind of hard to pick them as far as what they're going to do from week to week because everything has been canned up and sent out. So, they got the win. Tough loss for Minnesota, which honestly I think the Vikings should have won that game, but there's still some movement there over in the Jets organization, but I am sure that Minnesota wish they could have that game back and do something on that kickoff.
Yeah, it just shows you got to play all 3 phases of the game. Got to play all 3 phases.
I agree.
All right, I'll tell you what. We're going to move to San Francisco, and we've been wondering. Is Chicago? Are they around? I mean, what's going on with Chicago? They just looked like teetotal turds this season. The 7.5 point underdogs to San Francisco on the road. But as someone would say, not so fast, my friends. Chicago said, hey, everybody, we're still around and we're still alive, and went in and just teetotal stomped the 49ers 34-14. Justin Fields proving why he is arguably the number one rated quarterback in this league, throwing for 350 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks. But that's just half the story. Chicago ran the ball for 144 yards at 5.5 yards a carry, and defensively just smothered San Francisco. This looked like Chicago that we're used to seeing. Dean, we're going to go to you first. I know that you were proud to see Justin Fields, your draft pick, rookie of the year, you're a Super Bowl quarterback. I'm sure you're proud to see him have this big day in San Francisco. So, Dean, we'll go to you and see what your learnings were from this game.
I think the question I have is here: what happened to the San Francisco defense? Did they stay in the locker room and not show up for the game? I mean, as you noted, they gave up 144 yards rushing. They gave up 350 yards passing to Justin Fields, and 67% of those passes and 4 touchdowns. I mean, I think this result really has a lot to do with the way the San Francisco defense played, or I guess you could say didn't play so well. I think that's the big story here.
Yeah. Mark, what did you learn of this game?
What I learned from this game is that I don't know what the heck is going on down in Chicago. 1 minute they're playing bad, next minute they're playing good, next minute they're playing bad, next minute they're playing good. It's like pick a lane, guys. Charlie, for the season, Charlie's had those moments where his team started off slow and then they ended up picking it back up. Thought that they were going to try to keep pushing it forward, but they're just kind of stuck in that gear, going forward and reverse. So my main take out of it was both teams overall are just it's a toss-up. You don't know what you're going to get. So, but it's a good win for Chicago. Maybe it's a start for something new. Then again, I don't know. I mean, it's for one of those teams that used to be the top echelon. I don't know what to expect from them going forward. I can't figure it out.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And speaking of crazy, we're going to go to our final game from Week 8, where Seattle went on the road to play Las Vegas. And Seattle having a surprising season this year. We've been talking about that each week. 6.5 point favorites on the road against Las Vegas. And let's just call it for what this was. Seattle defensively just basically got their boot and put it on the neck of Las Vegas from the start of this game and never took it off, giving up just not even 200 yards of offense for Las Vegas. Just nothing. Zach Wilson, didn't have his normal big game, but was efficient. There, but obviously Najee Harris, player of the game there. But really, the rushing attack for Seattle was a 2-horse attack between Harris and Carter, both running for over 60 yards out there. So it was nice to see Seattle not only have some balance as far as attempts between rush and pass, but they were able to get 130 yards on the ground, and that really helped eat up some of that clock and just smother the Vegas Raiders. Which, oof. So, Dean, what did you learn in this game?
I think someone needs to inform the Raiders coaching staff that the forward, I do emphasize forward pass is legal in our league. Las Vegas completed 3.9 yards average gain per pass. That isn't going to do it. 49% completions in the longest pass completion by the Raiders in this game was 22 yards. So a game plan filled with like passes to the flats and screen passes and short passes, that's getting you 3.9 yards per pass. And they complemented that by running an average of 2.9 yards per carry. So when your average gain per play is a little over 3 yards, you're not sustaining drives. And, you know, I don't even know how they completed 6 out of 15 third downs. And so not taking anything away from Seattle's defense. Seattle played good defense, and that helped us. But, you know, that was kind of complemented in a sense by some fairly ineffective offense by the Raiders. And I'm sure that, you know, Mark can find plenty of areas where he probably thinks his offense could have done better. They scored 20 points, which is plenty when you don't give up anything when you pitch the shutout. But good win by Seattle, and I think, you know, maybe it's time to not see Seattle as the team that, you know, would lose 8 or 9 or 10 games in the past, because they're 7-1 and tied with Minnesota in the NFC West, and looking like a pretty solid candidate to get a playoff spot this season.
That's right. You know, and Dean, to your point, if you're only going to complete, you know, passes for about 3.5 or so yards per pass, you probably want to have at least a 95% completion percentage, not 49%. So, Mark, the defense showed up this week. What were your takeaways, Mark? And what'd you tell the team after this game?
What I told him was it was a pretty. You know, it was a good game. Still, you know, it was a struggle. I mean, what was it? First quarter, there was no points scored. Neither team could really do much. You know, offensive wise, I wasn't doing anything. You know, the second, I think I put up 2 field goals at that point. The points really started towards the actually in the fourth. That was when the points really rolled in. So it was out of that whole game, only one quarter we did anything that really put the numbers up. So on the offensive side, defensive side, I can't complain. The defense is what kept us in the game. The defense, I would say, defense is what won the game for us, because offense was just sputtering the whole game except the fourth. So good win. Ugly win, in my opinion, but hey, as you say, a win's a win. Take it.
That's right. That's right. I think it just shows that Seattle, you know, has figured out a way to grind out some of these ugly wins where in the past they would have lost ugly. So let's see if they keep that going. All right, Mark, that wraps up Week 8, another exciting week of football, and we're going to turn it over to you for our next segment.
All right. Thank you very, very much. Finishing up the first segment that was ran through the games, we're going into our middle segment, which basically is at the halfway point. We're looking at the standings and seeing some of the differences that they've had in the league. So we're going to go ahead and pass this over to Dean so he can go ahead and talk to the commish about that. So if you guys are ready, Dean, it is all yours.
Yeah, I want to raise one issue that I see going on, and then after we discuss this issue, we want to look at where things stand in the standings at the halfway point of the season. But the issue I want to raise is I do notice over the last few weeks, and maybe even most of this half of this season, this current season, it seems to me like, for the most part, there are exceptions, there are always exceptions, but it seems like on average, I haven't run any stats, but it looks to me like scoring is a bit down. And I think what we've seen as custom plays have been submitted on offense or defense of both over the years has been kind of an arms race that goes on between offense and defense. And what I mean by that is we may all remember the time years ago, or some of us do, that were around when Eric Davis was coaching Jacksonville, and he submitted a number of really well-designed, effective passing plays, and the offenses and the passing numbers across the board generally went up. And then defenses adjusted. We had the rise of the two defensive lineman defenses and some of the other defenses that have been created. And that kind of countered the offense, and scoring kind of went back down a little bit. So I wonder at this point, and the other thing that's happened, as our ratings have become more compressed in our rosters because of the fairly strong draft pools that we have every year that are added to the player, the pool of player talent overall. I wonder if we're at the point where our defense is becoming more effective at holding down scoring and offenses, or is it the compression in the ratings where every team has like 5 or 6 really good wide receivers and 2 or 3 fairly good running backs and, similar depth on defenses? Is that contributing to a kind of cooling off of the offense in general? So I'll throw that idea out there, and I want to see what you two think of that. Specifically want to see what Rich thinks, and then see what you think, Mark, also.
All right. Go ahead, Commish.
Well, Dean, I don't think it's really that big a deal at this point. If you look in the contract file, I believe you're right. Scoring is down about a point. I think it's 43 point something per game. Last season, I think we were at 44 point something. We've been in a very tight range the last few seasons. Our teams may be playing a little better defense, perhaps. How about the fact that, let's say, the Jets are on autopilot, so their offense might be down a little bit, right? Justin is not around. That also hurts the offense. So you got the two best coaches in the league who are really not participating and not scoring as much. Could that alone make up that point? It could. The Cardinals they're not anywhere close to being in the top of the league in scoring anymore. The Jets are near the top, but they're not blowing anybody away. So I think it's just it's just numbers. It's just kind of it's a point. It's less than a point total. So I wouldn't make too much of that yet. If you started seeing a trend really heading down toward 40 points a game, that would be like a career low for the league. But otherwise, we have been in a nice range of about 8 to 9 points the entire history of this league. Between 40 to 49 points average, both teams average for the entire 49 seasons. And so all you're talking about is maybe a half a point from last season. So
yeah, and the Jets have generally had the strongest passing games and best offenses. So yeah, they're down a bit. Look at Minnesota. Barney's offense is struggling a bit. He's a total of 172 points. Green Bay has scored 178. But the reason why Minnesota is 7-1 and Green Bay is 1-7, or part of the reason, is Green Bay has given up 212 points where Minnesota has given up 145.
Right, and I was going to mention Minnesota, like when you talk about the half-year review. Minnesota's interesting. It says 7-1. I don't think they're playing like they're 7-1.
Well, Barney,
you win games, but it's not an obvious 7-1.
Yeah, Barney himself has admitted that he's won a couple close games when we were talking about errors in profile, and how he was mentioning that his work on his profile has kept him in some of those close games.
Yeah. So right now, I don't think we have any issue with the scoring. It's always a back and forth offense, defense. I am really not sure about the custom plays because I don't look at them. I don't test them. I don't use them. So you guys know better than I do. But it feels like even custom plays are a little bit down this year. I
think there's been a lot of stuff submitted new this year, and that which doesn't really seem to be.
And maybe no impact plays. There's not a lot of impact custom plays this season where, like you mentioned Eric, and boy, that's like 10 seasons ago, 15 seasons ago with him. We really haven't had an influx of offense like that in many, many years. I mean, and a lot of you, I think some of the better offensive plays that have come in are usually short, and so those aren't really major impact custom plays. I mean, we don't get a lot of impact medium plays these days. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I think if you look at Charlie's weekly scouting reports, I don't know if there's been even a single play that was submitted this year that has made any of those reports. Certainly not that many.
Right. So that would mean that there's not much offense new, nothing impact, and then people are maybe coaching defense a little bit better. I mean, you got a couple teams like Seattle's up, Mark, you're up, and Indianapolis is up. Indianapolis is playing pretty damn good defense. So, I mean, it's just one of those seasons where things are a little down, but not major down. So, we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out.
The Giants are playing a bit better defense. They've only given up 130.
You're right.
And they scored.
Didn't they give up 500 last season?
Over 500, yeah.
Yeah, so Sean is doing a much better job. I mean, really, 134 points in 8 games for him. That's 268. He's like cutting his defense in half. That's tremendous.
Now, I guess we might as well start talking about where things stand at the halfway point. Philly is 3-5, but they've given up 204 points, and that's probably a big reason.
Well,
my team is 160, which is a little bit better than what my defense usually is, but it's only scored 126.
Right. You can't score. Right. You're playing better. Yeah, there's a bunch of teams playing better defense, but they can't score. I mean, it's kind of like New England can't score. They outgain everyone by 100 yards a week, and they can't score.
The big story in the NFC West is Seattle at 7-1. They've scored 233, which is pretty good, and given up 136. Minnesota 7-1 with some close wins. It's going to be interesting when those two teams play soon. 49ers 4-4 and would be tied for the last playoff spot with the Giants right now. Now, it's ironic that the last few seasons, the 49ers and Giants have been kind of usually playing a game at the end of the season that usually determines whether one of those make the playoffs or not. Chicago is they're not mathematically out, but they've given up 200 points. That's unlike Justin's teams. His teams usually don't give 200.
Well, it's not Justin, though. So.
Yeah, the Jets. That's true. The Jets have given up 171. The Jets are usually better in defense than that. As you point out, Indianapolis is playing pretty good defense, giving up 143, but they've only scored 165, which is why they're 5-3, tied with the Jets.
Right.
Buffalo is kind of up and down. They scored 184 and given up 208. So.
Yeah, he's played some high-scoring games. I mean, listen, let's face it. This story of the season, he's sitting in the room right there, is Mark. Right? I mean, what are you, second? 136 points against, second in the league in points against, I think. And you're also first in the league in points for.
Yeah.
I could not have predicted that. I mean, Mark, what's going on, Mark?
Well, I will say that what I did this season, in past seasons, I would put together certain profiles, but I didn't really do the homework at the end or generate the same profiles, or I would make changes on offense, but not on defense. I really didn't do a deep dive and use all the tools that we have out in the league. But this season, it's been a little bit different. I've taken a look at those tools and said, okay, let's see what happens if I really do a deep dive and really put forth really focus and put forth the effort. The Pittsburgh game, I'm not taking anything away from the Pittsburgh game. That was a good game. It was a hard-fought game, but I didn't, the prep that I've used for the 7 wins, I didn't do that 100% on that one game that I lost. I'm not saying if I did, would the results been the same? I can't say that because that was
Pittsburgh is one of the best teams in the league.
Exactly. Pittsburgh's one of the best teams in the league.
There is no shame. He has become one of the better coaches in the league.
Right.
So, I mean, losing to him is no shame at all.
Oh no, there's no shame to it. I'm just stating that when I the prep that I've used for the 7 wins, I did not do that 100% on that one loss. Maybe 80-90% of it I did. But that's not to say that I'm not using that as a crutch. I got my butt handed to me, and that was a good game.
Yeah.
So, and I also know that the teeth of my schedule is starting to come up real quick, So it's really gonna, when I start playing some of the top tier teams, is really gonna see, the plan that I'm making now, is it really gonna work? Has it been working for me against these guys or not? So I'm
I
definitely
still see
surprised.
some winnable games on that schedule for you, though. I mean, you do have Green Bay, you got Atlanta, you got 2 against the 49ers. I mean, you got Chicago. There's some winnable games there. I mean, you can still take care of business and find yourself at 10 or 11 wins in a playoff spot.
Yeah, but for me too, I got to look at if you want to be in the big league, you got to take out the big boys. So the Minnesota game, the Minnesota games, the San Francisco games. Let's see who else. I had Chicago, Green Bay, and I think Washington's in there as well. I play, so those games in Atlanta, those games are really gonna. I can't take anyone for granted. I think on Discord, I tell everybody, I don't calm down until I see zeros on the clock. Because I
think the second half of the season is going to be really interesting and competitive, and maybe this season, because of Thomas and Justin, it may be the most up in the air who's going to win the Super Bowl question we've had in a very long time, where there is not a clear, distinct favorite. I know Mitch won, but Mitch played a whole bunch of crappy games early in the season. He's played a couple of good ones since, very good games. But, Pittsburgh is going to be tough. Denver can easily jump back in this playoff race. Jets, Indy, and Buffalo. You could have all 3 teams at 8 or 9 wins. I see 3 teams in every division who are not dead yet. Washington's lost 3 games. I mean, so they're not a lock. I mean, so Mark, you, Barney, and Charlie's not done yet. As I said, Minnesota's 7-1. He's 1-7 against the spread. Now, I know the spread doesn't mean anything, but if my spread is not terrible, then that tells me that he's winning some very close games, and he's kind of fortunate that he's 7-1. He could easily be 5-3 and be in the pile. So I think that the second half of the season, it's very up for grabs for about 12 teams. I don't think New England's going to win some games in the second half. He's not this bad. He's not a 1-7 team. He's better than that. Dean, you've won 3 games. You're not even out of it. Win a couple games and you're right back in the race. I mean, Chicago's 3-5. The new coach, Mitchell. He's not done yet. I mean, other than Green Bay, Jacksonville, and New England's probably out of it. But I think Mox will win some games. So again, I don't know who's going to win the Super Bowl because you've got a lot of good coaches now. Again, I'm taking Justin out of it. I'm kind of taking Thomas out of it. So it is up for grabs. All right. I mean, Steve could win it. I even think Tim could win it. I think Brian, Donovan, Mitch, Jerry. Barney, of course, can win it. I mean, now listen, do I think you're going to win it, Mark? Probably not, but you're 7-1. I don't know. I mean, you get to the playoffs, and who the heck knows, right? Dean knows. I mean, Dean went all the way to the Super Bowl, so you just never know. There's a lot of guys who can win the Super Bowl this year. It's going to be an interesting second half of the year.
New England is the best 1-7 team in the league, but with 7 losses,
oh,
it's going to be tough.
Yeah, he's not going to make the playoffs, but I mean, he's going to be a problem, though. That's the thing. Mox is going to be a problem for teams the second half of the season because he's better than 1-7.
Yeah, Shuggy is going to be as well at 1-7.
Well, I don't know how much of a problem. He has played better recently, but I don't know how much of a problem he's going to be. But he still has some work to do. But we'll see. But going to be an interesting, like Denver. There's no way Brian is not dead at 3-5. I know it doesn't look good, but he's not dead. He's a couple games. In fact, he's 1-2. He's 2 games out of a playoff spot with 8 to play. He's fine.
Denver are both 3-5, but do we think that Denver is substantially a better team than Las Vegas at this point?
Yes, I do. I think he's a better coach. I think I do think he's a better coach. So I think Denver could easily bounce back. Let me look at Denver's schedule. What's Denver got? Denver's got Buffalo, Houston, Jets, Jacksonville, Green Bay. Oh no, I'm looking at Vegas' schedule. All right, he's got some tough games in his schedule. He's got to play Pittsburgh. He's got to play Barney. But then he also has on the schedule. He's got New England, Jacksonville, Vegas, Philly, Vegas again. Denver absolutely could get back into the playoffs. So I wouldn't count him out. I think there's a lot of teams who are not dead, and it just feels like things are crunched in a little. You know, the Jets have got 3 losses. Pittsburgh and Houston both have a couple of losses. Jerry's got 3 losses. Arnie should have 3. He'll probably lose a couple games in this back half. I don't know what his schedule looks like, but he may drop a couple or a few in the second half of the season to kind of tighten that race up. Mark, the odds are you're not going 15-1. That's what, it's probably not. So you're going to lose it. Things are going to start to tighten up, and there's going to be I think a pretty nice playoff race this year. I don't think too many teams
just
are
looking at Minnesota right now, they have Atlanta, Seattle, Denver, Houston, Buffalo, Seattle, Giants, and Washington.
There are 4 games on that schedule that Barney absolutely could lose. He could lose to Denver. He could lose to Houston. He could lose to Buffalo. He could lose to Washington. Easily. I mean, not that he will, but I mean, could he lose 4? Could he go 4-4 in the back half? Absolutely.
Buffalo have left?
And then you're looking for Seattle. Seattle has Green Bay, Minnesota, Atlanta, San Francisco, Washington, Minnesota, Chicago, San Francisco.
You could easily lose. You could lose 4 or 5 games in that back half. You could lose to Minnesota. You could split with the 49ers. You could lose to Washington, lose to Minnesota again. There's 4 losses right there. You could. I mean, anything can happen, but I mean, would it shock me if you went 4-4 in the back half? Absolutely not. So I think it's going to be close.
Who does Buffalo have left? They're 4-4 right now. Who do they have left?
Let me see who Buffalo has.
Buffalo's got. Who's Buffalo got?
Buffalo's
got Vegas, Washington, New England, Atlanta, Minnesota, Indy, San Fran, Pittsburgh. So Buffalo's got Washington to deal with. He's got Minnesota. He's got Pittsburgh. I mean, Buffalo. Steve could go 5-3, and that's. I could see Steve at 9-7. I could see the Jets, Indy, and Buffalo all at 9-7, fighting for that division. So. We'll see. I think you got some good races here. Some of them seem like they're done, but I don't think they're done. I don't think Denver's done. The only one Eastern Division, the NFC, Jerry, because Sean and Dan have never shown historically the ability to beat Jerry. Right? They've never taken a division from them. So that division, it's a 1-game lead. But somehow I feel like Jerry will figure out how to win it.
Okay.
The other divisions, I don't know. It's gonna be a good second half, I think.
Yep, I agree. All right. Is that all you have for us in this middle segment, Dean?
Yeah, that's all we have.
All right. So a lot of good information there, and definitely it's going to look like a very exciting second half of the season. So a lot of things. It'll be interesting to see what happens in 4 weeks when we make that 3-quarter turn, to see how it's going to shape up. All right, and that wrapped up the middle segment there. Thank you very much, Rich, for your input and your analysis of the league at the halfway point. So we are running a little bit long. Thanks a lot for you guys for sticking around with us. We're going to go ahead and jump into our third segment for the Week 9 games, and then we're going to go in from there over to the PCFL, the latest update. So we're going to try to run through this so we don't stretch it out much longer. So we're going to pass this one back over to Mitch as he comes up with info on the Week 9 games. Mitch.
Yes. Big week coming up for a lot of teams. 15 teams in our league, I would say, are still legitimately in this race for the playoffs. And let's see what these matchups are for Week 9. Starting off in New England, where we have, the Patriots, hosting the Jets, and when you look out there, not Not a lot of respect there for New England this week. They are 7.5-point dogs, and I'm gonna take the Jets this week. Dean, what do you think?
I'm picking the upset. The Patriots are going to win at home, and they are going to beat the Jets.
Mark, what are your thoughts?
Well, I got to ride with them this week. I got to say it. The Jets are going to do what they normally do, taking the Jets this week.
Oh, boy. That just death nail. All right, here we go. Moving across to Pittsburgh in a tough AFC West showdown between the Steelers and the Broncos. Steelers 6.5-point favorites. Mark, who do you think's going to win this game?
I would like to say the Broncos, but I don't know. Sitting at 4-4, I gotta go in with with my team. I'll go with Pittsburgh, and I'm gonna put all my chips in on this one. I think it's gonna be a good game, but I'm gonna go with Pittsburgh this week. My lead pipe lock.
All right, Dean, where's your mind thinking on this game?
Those infamous words, not so fast, my friend. Denver is back on the right track and is going to have a strong second half of the season. I think this is kind of one of those so-called trap games at Pittsburgh. I'm putting all my chips in on this one, a lead pipe lock. Denver is going to win as the visiting team.
Yeah, Denver is 0-4 on the road, everybody. So Pittsburgh is not an easy place to play. I'm going with Pittsburgh, but I think the Broncos will definitely keep it within that 6.5. All right, let's move down to the state of Florida, where America's team is traveling to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. Houston, 10.5-point favorites. Probably not even enough against the Jaguars. But, Mark, what do you think is going to happen in this game?
Houston. Nothing else. Houston.
Mark. Dean, what do you think?
4 simple words of this: Oilers win and cover.
Yes. The Oiler organization agrees with that. We'll take the Oilers, too. All right. Going back up to the northeast corner, where we've got the Bills, 7.5-point favorites, hosting those, Raiders who just put up the goose egg. I'm going to take the Bills on this one. Dean, what do you think?
Yeah, easily win and cover the spread. Bills are going to win. When the defense is looking at a team that scores 3-point-something yards per play, that's an easy pick. Bills all day long.
Mark, how do you see this coming out?
Bills.
All right, everyone's on the Buffalo wagon. Yeah. All right, now a big NFC East battle between the New York Giants, home underdogs against the mighty Washington Redskins, a banged-up Washington Redskins team after that tough road excursion to Houston. I am looking at this, and I think the Redskins will win this thing, but I think it's going to be closer than that 7.5. Mark, do you agree with me, or do you think it'll go a different direction?
I really want to go with the Giants this week on this one, but I know I wanted to try to run through this. I'm gonna pull the Giants. I'm gonna go for the Giants for the upset.
All right,
for this, I'm
Dean, do you agree, or what do you think?
No, absolutely not. Jerry is not going to fall to 5-4. He's 5-3 now. He's not falling to 5-4. He's going to be putting in some serious effort. His team will be ready for this game, and they are the visitor, but they're going to play strong, and they are going to do some things. They're going to do some really good things because the Redskins are not only going to win this game, they are going to cover that spread.
We'll have to check the Weather Channel, see if there's any precipitation coming into New York this week, and that'll tell us what's going to happen. All right, speaking of precipitation, there will not be any in Minnesota, where the Vikings, 9.5-point home favorites after a tough loss to the Jets, hosting the Atlanta Falcons. This one here, Falcons after a big win going on the road. I think I'm going with the Vikings, but I think the Falcons will keep it under that 9.5. But Mark, what do you think's going to happen in this game?
I'm sorry, Dean. I got to go with the Vikings on this one. I don't think it's going to be a 9.5-point spread. I think it's going to be a much closer game, but I think in the end the Vikings are going to take the win.
Coach Chambers, how do you see this game turning out for the Falcons?
The visiting team will spoil the party. Let's put it that way.
All right, everybody, put it on your calendars. All right, speaking of calendars, let's see if the 49ers can play a groundhog and keep their 6 weeks of winter from happening after that embarrassing loss to Chicago last week. They traveled to Philadelphia as 4.5-point favorites, if you can believe it or not. I'm looking at this, and I'm going Eagles in this game. I think they're going to step it up. Dean, what do you think's going to happen?
Again, not so fast. I think the 49ers will rebound from last week, and that 4.5-point spread is small enough for Charlie's guys to cover it. So 49ers win on the road and cover the spread.
Mark, how do you see this game turning out?
The one thing that stands out that I see, there's two sets of numbers. Points for, Philadelphia has 159, San Francisco has 134. Points against, Philly's giving up 204, Frisco's giving up 167. So you could call it a push, but I think in the end, I think Philly's going to – I'm thinking the Philly team that's going to show up is the one that's going to put up the points. I'm going to take Philly for the upset.
All right. Indianapolis with a bit of a tough streak here. Losers of 2 in a row. Favored by 6.5 over the Cardinals, who just had that big victory on the road against San Francisco. I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking, I don't believe the Colts are getting too shaky. I'm taking the Cardinals in this game. We'll see. But Dean, what do you think's going to happen in this game?
Yeah, I think for us to have some renewed confidence in Indianapolis, they're going to have to prove it and show us something. So, yeah, I'm picking Chicago to win this game as well.
Mark, do you agree with us, or are you going the contrarian route?
Actually, I'm gonna go along with you guys as well for this one because I don't know what team is going to show up for either one of them, truthfully, but I think that Chicago probably has the better outcome than Indy, and I'm going to call for Chicago for the upset.
All right, that means Colts by 18 now. All right, and wrapping it up for the Week 9, the must-see game of the week, you've got the Packers strolling into Seattle. 8.5-point favorites, those Seahawks are this week. After, last week's shutout victory against Las Vegas, what's left in the tank for Seattle? I'm smelling an upset here, everybody. I think the Packers are going to go into Seattle and going to pull it off. I just got that feeling. I don't know. Dean, do you agree with me, or do you think Seattle's going to keep it rolling?
I don't know what you're smelling because Seattle is going to win this game at home and probably cover the spread.
Mark, what do you think? You think you're going to get this one, or you think you think Shuggy's going to come out there and nip you in the butt?
Go Hawks! I nothing against Shuggy. I'm sure Shuggy's going to come in prepared for this. This is the second game of our season. Our home and away. I took the first one, 34-17. I think that Shuggy will come in a little bit, a little bit more prepared this week. But I think in the end, go Hawks. I'm not sleeping past this one.
He's going to do some things, but fall short and not win the game.
Mark just told me to go hawk myself. That's what he just told me.
There you go. There you go.
All right, everybody. That's our week 9. A lot of big games. Again, a lot of teams. I think I counted probably about 15 teams that are still legitimately in the hunt for the playoffs. So huge start to the second half of the season. And so, Mark, I turn it over to you.
All right. So we're wrapping this up as we've gone through the PNFL stuff. Thanks, you guys, for hanging in there, sticking with us on this. We're going to pivot on over to the PCFL. They've already gone through the 5-star recruiting, the 4-star recruiting, and the 3-star recruiting. We are in the training camp phase right now. And for the latest updates on that, we're going to pass this one over to Dean.
Yes, I sent out an email this afternoon. We are going into training camp. We have one team that needs to sign a couple of recruits to finish the recruiting. That needs to happen ASAP. We're doing training camp, and those files are good for the other 17 teams to do the training camp. I also sent out in the emails the deadlines for the rest of what we need to do in this off season. We'll be renaming our recruits, and training camp will be getting conducted. It's looking like the 9th of May will be when week 1 PPPs are due. That's when we'll start our new season. A week before that, it probably won't happen, but players put on practice squads practice squads will be due the week before that. I sent out the deadline. I think it's like Tuesday, a week from yesterday, I think it is, or 2 weeks. Anyway, the dates are in that email. I do want to make one note, and this applies to a lot of people. I'm not singling anyone out in particular. This coming season, because the last 2 seasons we'd been a little bit lenient in enforcing the deadline for submitting PPPs. They're due on Friday night, but the way it's going to work this season, and there'll be no questions, no exceptions, and I'm not going to be emailing folks saying, you're like on Saturday afternoon saying, I don't have a PPP for you. They're due by the end of Friday. And what it basically means is when I wake up Saturday morning to run games, if I don't have a new PPP from any team, they're using last week's stuff. That's as simple as that. I'm not messaging people. I'm not sending out emails. I'm not doing any of that. The stuff is due on Friday night. And if someone sends something at 4:00 in the morning, early Saturday morning, that will get used. If I have your stuff before your game gets played on Saturday, it will get used. If I go to play your game and I don't have an email and no new stuff is submitted, last week's stuff is getting used. So I'm going to be strict about that in the way that Rich has done in the PNFL, where, get your stuff in, and if he doesn't have stuff from you, he's using your last week's stuff. Because, the deadline should apply to everyone fairly, and basically, before you go to bed on Friday night, get your stuff in. If not before that, if it's in before that, maybe we could possibly have a game or two that we could show on Discord on Friday nights, especially after the PNFL season is over. The more games, more people that can submit. Again, when you're in PNFL off season, that more teams that can submit PPPs on Thursday night, we can start doing some Friday night lights PCFL games when the PNFL is in off season. But as far as the actual deadline, get your stuff in before you go to bed on Friday. That will ensure that your stuff is actually getting used when the game is played on Saturday. If I go to play your game on Saturday and I don't have new stuff, your team is playing with whatever you had left from last week. It's that simple. Otherwise, training camp is next. We do need some volunteers and I know at least one coach has already volunteered to do that, to help with doing a couple of the CPU teams. We have 9 CPU teams, so they all need regular training camps to be done. Of course, we all need to do our own teams over the next week because it's next week. I figure a full week of time is enough time to get training camp done. We don't need to drag it out any longer than that. So that's what we're focused on right now. You can also submit on the form. You can post your player renaming, and I'll put those through as well. So that's where we stand. So within a couple of weeks, or a little more than a couple, I guess like 2.5 weeks, we'll be starting the 2026, the third season. Third season already. Imagine that. It seemed like it was just yesterday we started the league. But soon we'll be starting the third season of the PCFL.
Okay. All right, guys. So as we come to wrap up our show this week, a little bit long this week, but I think there's a lot of good information in there that we got out to you guys. Hope you guys enjoy it. Or enjoyed it. So as we make our last trip around the table, any final words that you have, Dean, regarding PNFL or anything that you might have forgot through the PCFL?
I would say going into this week, it would be interesting to see, because I commented in the middle segment about that some of our teams are kind of struggling a bit on offense. So it would be interesting to see this week if some coaches are able to turn it up a little bit and have their teams perform a little bit better in their offensive output this week, especially in the passing game. Let's see some good passing performances. The passing game has been a bit weak lately on the part of a lot of teams. So let's see how that goes this week.
All right. Mitch, any final words for you? Take us home.
Nothing much to say. Friday Night Lights as usual. Everyone join in. Other than that, let's get it. And as Mark would say, go hawk yourself, PNFL.
That's a new one.